Welcome to the WriterDojo with your host, Steve Diamond.
I'm your Huckleberry.
And Larry Correa.
I am that guy.
Today's episode, beta readers and writing groups.
Larry told me I was going to appreciate his intro, and I totally do.
That's because we're Team Amos.
Oh my heavens.
Team
One of my
Amos.
favorite lines ever.
Team Amos to the grave.
Good heavens. And the guy playing him just crushed that line.
Yeah. We're talking about The Expanse, if you
The
guys
Expanse.
aren't aware, but yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the WriterDojo, where we give you nuts and bolts, awesome and super, to use a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference, tubular advice, Larry. Today, Larry, I kind of want to talk about a few things. One of them being, we've noticed some very, very, very positive, kind of cool things with our Facebook group, the
Yeah.
WriterDojo Facebook group.
Yeah, this idea for tonight's discussion actually comes from producer Jack.
Yeah.
And we owe it to him too, because he is actually the guy who decided to put together a WriterDojo Facebook group.
You'd have thought that at some point you and I would have been smart enough to do that, but turns out no.
Well, I'm also usually banned from Facebook,
That's
so
fair.
I probably would.
Dude, you're on a record.
I've been on for almost 2 months.
Yeah.
That's because I had to be on for the Kickstarter, which I was on for the entire Kickstarter, 3 weeks.
You guys can't see what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I watch Cycle. Well, if you guys pay attention, most of the time when I answer with memes, they're always memes relating to the show Psych.
Yeah.
And so, proud of you, Larry. Proud
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah, and the Kickstarter was fantastic.
Super rad.
$340,000.
And in a future episode, we're going to talk about weird and crazy like ancillary rights.
Yeah, ancillary rights and
and
merchandising.
stuff.
We'll do an episode about that. But we've actually have been on Facebook for about 2 months now, which is amazing for me.
So proud of you.
And the thing is, so Jack had this idea that there's all these writers out there who have bailed out of their online writer groups
Yeah.
because they suck, or they've gone woke, or they become insufferable, or they get
or they've just bailed from all of the online Facebook groups that they've been in, with
or
all the multiple,
or they were
people.
SIFWA members who've just completely given up on discussing anything over there
It's unfortunate.
because everything is just woke and crazy, and you can't ask a question without like getting harpies descending upon you to devour your soul for transgressing against
And
their
one of the
arbitrary
things,
gods.
well, yeah, and one of the things that you and I are always saying is, look, it's okay to ask questions, and to just want just a straight up answer. And that's what you and I have been trying to provide to everybody.
That was
It's just straight up answers.
That was the original goal behind WriterDojo, was we were looking out there at other writing podcasts, and especially for genre, for us sci-fi fantasy guys. And there was some that were great once and had just kind of like gone to hell.
Yeah, or they've lost their way, or
They got woke and boring.
yeah, they got woke, and they cared more about appealing to a group of people who don't actually care about you.
Yeah.
Rather than to the giant masses of you out there who are hungry to learn how to be better at what you do.
Yeah. So that's we started this, and then Jack was like, "Hey, let's put an online thing for people to actually get together and discuss and ask questions."
And you and I are like, oh yeah, that's a great
good
idea.
idea.
We should totally do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then we actually drafted a handful of moderators from the Monster Hunter International fan page, because
Great
yeah,
people.
they're pretty baller.
They're
And
awesome.
big thanks to those guys. They are awesome. And but for the most part, we keep a real light touch and let people just like work their business out and ask questions. And we got experts from all walks of life in there. You want to know about something, somebody in there will have an answer.
Almost guaranteed. And one of the very first things that Jack pointed out to us was, once everybody flooded in, a lot of people were telling the same story, and you alluded to it, and that's that people were leaving their groups because all they cared about was like sensitivity readers, or they were leaving online Facebook groups because all they cared about was showing off how cool they were, or shamelessly self-promoting themselves like every single friggin' day.
Yeah.
Man, that gets old.
The endless self-promotion should not be flogged onto other writers.
And seriously, for all you people in the Facebook group, if you do that, Dude, I will wreck you.
Oh no, we'll boot you in a heartbeat.
I'll wreck you.
Because honestly, it's super annoying. And the thing is, everybody in there has something to
The only one who gets to shamelessly self-promote in there is me and Larry.
Well, yeah, our name's on it.
So,
well, and even then, we haven't. I haven't.
and we don't do that.
I've had 2 new things come out or will be coming out during this, and I have never promoted my stuff in there. You know.
So during that whole thing, Jack pointed this out, and he's like, guys, people are asking about beta groups, like beta readers and stuff, groups of beta readers,
writing groups,
and then writing groups.
Yeah.
Now we've talked about this a little bit before, because I mean it's not like this is a new question, and we addressed it briefly in one of our Q&A sessions, I believe. But what we thought we would do is kind of revisit it, refresh your memories and stuff, talk about some of this jazz, and give you some ideas on how you can use the WriterDojo Facebook group to facilitate some of this.
Yeah. The big thing is meeting people who are of like mind
Yeah.
and taste and genre and expertise and kind of tuning it from there. Because what you'll run into, the problem with most writing groups, like organic writing groups, is it's a group of friends who want to be writers. And most of them are not published writers. And so they get together and they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so you got kind of the blind leading the blind kind of situation.
Yep. That's exactly it, dude.
And most writing groups implode because it turns into people giving bad advice because they don't know any better to other people who accept the bad advice or get offended.
Yeah.
But no one really knows what they're doing. And so they're just kind of fumbling along. I do know of some successful writing groups. We talked about Brandon Sanderson's writing
Brandon
group.
Sanderson actually had a pretty successful one.
Yeah, that was an anomaly. That was a everything involving Brandon Sanderson is a statistical anomaly, though.
Oh, gosh, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy. I mean, if everything surrounding a person is a statistical anomaly, then it really isn't, and he's just doing something better.
Yeah, and Brandon just goes
and
beast
he does
mode.
That.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
But like you look at his writing group, I believe like everybody in there became a published author with some degree of success or another.
Yeah, every single person, I think.
Yeah, which is kind of incredible, and that is not the norm.
No, it's not. It's freaking rad. If you can get in that group, man, get in a group like that. That's freaking rad.
If you can find a bunch of, you got a guy who's like, a genius workaholic, and he brings along a bunch of other people, by all means do that.
Now, I was in a writing group for a while. Speaking of Brandon, we have the utmost respect for Brandon. I went into his class. I just graduated from BYU. I went into his class because he was there, and went in and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, hey, everybody, this is Steve. I've known him for a little while. He made all these idiotically successful signings for me. And he's just going to sit in and audit the class and have fun. Like, who wants him in the writing group? Because apparently that's one of the very first things Brandon does is he has the group split into, I don't know if he still does this. I haven't been to his class in a long time, in like 10 years. But, he splits everybody into writing groups so that there's, I think the general consensus of it is so that there's accountability, which is good, especially when you're a new burgeoning writer. But in this one group off in the corner, they all raised their hands, like emphatically. And for a brief moment, I thought, oh, they like me. They really like me. So I get over there, and two of the people in that group actually are published writers now. Brian McClellan, good dude.
Good dude.
Great writer.
Yeah, very good writer.
And another guy named Chris Hosberg. Another.
Yeah, I know Chris.
Yeah, you know Chris from the cons. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when you all kind of came up from the same spot and you're all getting published and whatnot. And here's the funny thing, though. In that group, there were a couple other people, but I knew immediately. And I've told both of them this, and I told them this at the time when we were all still unpublished. I told Brian and I told Chris, I said, you guys are going to get published. I already know it. I'm reading over your draft stuff, the stuff you're submitting to writing group, And it's already just as good as some of the stuff that's out there. I said, as long as you don't just completely fall off the planet or have like a complete meltdown, you're going to be published. And sure enough, they were. So writing groups can be really cool. For me, the best part of the writing groups, and we'll start with writing groups and then we'll get to beta readers. Maybe we'll hit beta readers towards the latter half of the episode. Writing groups can be cool. And I think some of the best things that can happen in a writing group, if you have a bunch of people in it who are actually kind of good and kind of intelligent at what they do, is one, you get to read pretty cool stuff from individuals who write different from you. And if you're wise enough to look at it that way, you can actually learn quite a bit. You can look at that person and go, oh, dang, that person does dialogue really well here. What are they doing better than me? How can I learn from it? Look, but that's no different than just reading any general book. But somehow when you see that in a writing group, you're like, oh, well, this person's just in a writing group with me. It kind of means more. It helps you more.
Well, because they're an actual person that
exactly.
you deal with, as opposed to like, words on a page where you don't know really where those came from.
Magic. You don't know what ghostwriter wrote those.
You don't think about that when you read usually, but if you know the person creating it and you know they created it that week. I will say one thing about is accountability.
And that was my next point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if it's pushing you all to achieve and get stuff done, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's gigantic. That's a gigantic motivator.
I mean, you and I have talked about the idea of making writing your habit where possible. So if a writing group is helping you set that habit to yourself to write and constantly write and whatnot, then you're in a pretty good place and there is value there. Now, the flip side. Writing groups can be absolutely terrible for you.
Oh, yeah, indeed. If you get a bad group, I think it's worse than being alone. I mean, it'll actually actively be an active detriment against your career.
And to be fair, I think that there's a lot of you out there who had this question where that's the whole reason why you left, because you were able to diagnose that this was an unhealthy relationship that you were having.
Yep.
And you and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was simply they were trying to force you to change your story to what they wanted rather than what you wanted to write.
And that's terrible.
That's probably the single biggest problem I see with writing groups. Yeah. And people try to do it to me.
I don't like this.
Yeah.
Well, there's billions of people in the world. You're not it.
Yeah. I had one guy, a very early book that I wrote. I co-wrote it with a buddy we know, a guy named Rob Code. You remember Code?
Code.
Yeah. That from one of our L5R campaigns.
Yeah.
Rob's a good dude. I love Rob. I hope he's doing well. He and I wrote this story, and we had a guy who, after a long, crazy, hard day of, murdering things, he gets back to this bar. It's a very Old West bar. He gets back, and his more or less common law wife is like, "Hey, look, you're tense." They're having this conversation. She just kind of looks at him and she's like, "Well, you coming or what?" And she points to the bedroom and then goes off to the bedroom. And the main character just kind of looks down at his drink and his food, shrugs, just pushes all those away, and then gets up and walks straight to the bedroom. And then the scene ends. Now, look, what's going to happen there. I don't show anything. It's not like I'm 50 Shades of Graying this up, right?
Yeah.
But the dude literally complained about that, saying that I don't think that you need to have that in here. And he was he spent literally 10 minutes of the writing group session we had telling me why we shouldn't have included that scene.
Well, every married dude ever who's come home from a day work. This is not a super.
There's no
This is a
look.
relatable thing.
I was
for
going to
married
say,
people.
like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And I was married at the time.
Yeah.
He was not.
Oh. Yeah.
And so this explains some things, right? Now, in the beginning, my very first thought was, and you know me, I'm pretty chill. My very first thought was, well, dang, should I be, do I need to change that?
Am I wrong?
Am I wrong? Like, and then I thought, no, heavens no.
Yeah, so
Like, if I were in that guy's position, would I have done anything different? No. The only thing I would have done different is probably run there instead of walked. Come on, man. Like, come on. And there's this very real danger. And it's the same danger that I see with when you receive editorial from a bad editor.
Yeah.
And that's that they want you to change your story to what they want it to be rather than what you're actually trying to convey.
Yeah. And which is kiss of death.
Oh, it murders your story, dude.
Because if they wanted to write that story, they should just write it themselves, not force you to write the story for them. I think that's all bad critics.
And the other biggest problem I see in writing groups is the person who, and maybe this is you, and if this is you, it's okay, but just stop it. And that's the ultra sensitive person in the group.
Oh, shut up. Yes, just stop.
They're like, you say, hey, you know, I'm not, look, the whole point of a writing group is for you to have a conversation early on and say, hey, look, this is a writing group. The point of this is for us to learn and get better. We cannot learn and get better if we're not honest with each other. Now, I'm not saying we need to be mean to each other, but we have to be honest. We cannot spend all of our time figuring out how to sugarcoat something for one or two individuals in order to let you, so that your feelings don't get hurt.
Yeah, that person's going to just be a suck. They're
And
just going to.
yet, every group has them.
Yep.
Literally. And
Well, and also there's the flip side of it. That's the hypersensitive person that you can't be honest with.
Well, yeah.
Because they're so sensitive about being criticized. They don't need to be in a writer group then.
Right. And that really hurts. Now, look, you have to be honest. And if a person isn't willing to accept your honesty, then one, either they shouldn't be in the group, or two, you shouldn't be in the group and get the hell out. Okay. But the other thing that I'm thinking too is another pitfall of writers groups are the people who, oh gosh, what's the best way to put this? They're going through the motions.
Oh yeah. They're
like, oh crap, I got to get something on the paper for today.
The dilettante.
I had a person who in a writers group once who we were set to meet for that week, and the day before he hadn't put anything down on paper. He finally did, and I was reading through it, and this is when we were doing line edit type stuff and comments on everything. I was going through, and the guy, I was about a few paragraphs in, and I started getting the feeling, the twitch, the itch, so to speak. If you've read some of my stuff, the itch, you know what I'm talking about. I started getting the itch. I'm like, something's off here. And I realized, like, the story almost had no continuity with the rest of the book he'd been submitting. And so I stopped editing. I stopped reading it. And when we got to the group, I asked him, I said, what was going on here? He said, oh, well, I just forgot, so I just threw something on the page. I'm not going to use it. I said, well, then why are you wasting my time? Like, writing groups can be time sinks.
Yeah.
And what you don't need is someone who isn't taking it seriously.
Now, if you're going to do it, you should be committed. Or
in that case, just tell the group, hey, guys, I'm screwed for the week. I'm not going to submit, but I'll happily read your stuff. That's fine. That's okay. And if you're in that situation, just be honest with them and say, guys, I can't today. Blah, blah, blah. Right? As you can see, there's a lot of things about writing groups that can trip you up. However, there's all the good things too. you just have to weigh through all of these and evaluate the members of your writing group wherever you find them, and we're going to talk about that. You have to kind of evaluate them case by case and moment by moment to see if they're actually helping you. Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to shift to beta readers, and we're going to bring it all back around to talk about how you can use the Writer Dojo Facebook page to help you with all this stuff. So we'll be right back.
When Father Tanner, a missionary to a backwater alien planet, discovers that his shipment of medical supplies has been intercepted by an enemy patrol, he is forced to find another way to keep his clinic open. He takes a job treating an injured alien bureaucrat and teams up with Damian Rogers, a smuggler stranded with a broken-down ship, to pull it off. But operating behind enemy lines in a galaxy-wide Cold War means they have to hide their identities or risk execution. As the patient's condition gets steadily worse, the team's ruse falls apart and they are forced to go on the run, turning Father Tanner from minister to kidnapper. As they struggle to stay one step ahead of the Brotherhood Armada, Tanner races to find the right diagnosis before their only bargaining chip dies on the operating table. Life Support: Secret Operations, a sci-fi medical mystery thriller by Joseph L. Kellogg. Available wherever ebooks are sold or direct from the author at josephlkellogg.com. Pick up your copy today.
Welcome back, everybody. In the interim, we were fortunate enough not to be murdered by sharks. That's good.
It was hit or miss there for a while.
You know, I'm very worried about this on a constant basis. You all send me all these memes and stuff, but look, it's not fun to make fun of people with a condition and where sharks are literally out to get them every day. I mean, they're like the mob. They're organized. They have teamsters everywhere. They follow you. It's scary shit.
Yeah, Steve really hated Suicide Squad because it's bipedal.
It's
shark.
really rough. You got to be careful. Okay, beta readers, Larry.
Yes. Now this is something I do use.
You use beta readers a lot.
Yeah, I'm not a big writer group guy, but I am a beta reader guy. And not as much now as I used to be, because I got a lot more practice.
Yeah.
But when I was especially starting out, I had what I called Reader Force Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
And
you still have it. I mean, it's not like it's gone.
It's not. I don't use it as religiously as I used to.
And you used to use it for everything.
Yeah, I used to use it for everything. And so what it is, I had a cadre of volunteers, just fans, people who really like my stuff, but there are also people that I trusted their opinions on, or they had special expertise. And so I would use them to read my stuff and give me feedback. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but what I was looking for, I was never looking for one person's opinion. So if one person came back because I didn't like this, or I was bored here, I was confused here. But if I gave it to 10 people and 9 of them or 8 of them were okay with it, but 1 or 2 had a problem, it was probably fine. If I gave it out and 7 or 8 of them had a problem, then I had a problem. Then there was something wrong. So I was kind of looking for just kind of a vibe. It was like a vibe check is what I would do with them. And I mean, Steve, I still use you quite a bit.
I think I still get everything.
I think, I give you pretty much everything, unless I'm on a deadline and I don't have time.
Yeah.
There's always that element. And then I use Jack a lot too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
oftentimes, you're not asking me for heavy feedback. You're like, Steve, give me your gut check.
Yeah, I'm looking for gut checks.
And is there something obvious I'm missing? So you sent me Lost Planet 2 the other day. Sorry, Lost Planet Homicide 2. Gotta be careful. There's a video game named Lost Planet.
I know, and I already have one video game name in common.
Dude, and I watched that movie the other night.
Monster Hunter?
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I don't know why isn't that Paul Verhoeven or whatever his name is?
Oh, no, it's Paul W.S. Anderson.
Oh, that's right, Paul W.S. Anderson.
Because Mila Jovovich is in it.
How does he still make movies?
It's not like she's that bad even.
No.
That movie is atrocious.
I haven't seen it.
The storytelling is all over the place. The dialogue is trash. And the CG in it, in some aspects, is just miserable.
It's like Sci-Fi Original Pictures level.
I don't even know if it's that good.
Wow.
It's so bad. Anyway, sorry, everybody.
No, so Lost Planet Homicide.
Lost Planet Homicide. You sent that to me, and I think my initial response was, dude, I don't have time to read this. And then an hour later, I sent you a message and said, just kidding, I read it and it was awesome. But I did send you one overarching comment. There was a day in the past when I was your beta reader in the past, Steve, who had more time, where I would literally like almost line edit you.
Yeah, Steve would send me like pretty good edits, like deep edit. And now, honestly, what I'm looking for now, because like most of my friends don't have a lot of time.
Well, and I'm gonna let the editors at Audible be your line editor.
This thing
I'll let them earn their money. I'm not gonna do their job for them.
Yeah, I mean, I have people who are actually getting paid for this.
I know.
Now.
I know. I mean, now you do pay me in burritos and caffeinated drinks, but
well, that's different.
But for you at this point, I think my comments were like, oh, hey, yeah, I really like this part. I like the story here. This part right here is unclear for me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're doing here. And I think that if you add this little thing in here, it'll bring it all back around.
Yeah.
And it'll make it all really clever.
There are bits where like what I'm looking for when I say gut check, and it's the rule of thumb that I heard Orson Scott Card say this one time, and it was what he's asking his beta readers to look, or his alpha readers to look for, is are you ever bored or confused?
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm getting you to do a read and you get a part where you're like, I don't get what you're doing here. Oh, I think I get what you're doing here, but it'd be cooler like if this happened, it would connect it. Okay, to that's valuable stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of times something that I was like going for, and in my head it was clear, but it wasn't necessarily clear for the reader.
It happens to everybody. You're writing your story, and you think you're being awesome, or you think you're the worst thing on the planet. One of the two, usually at the same time, and you're way too close to the story.
There are times where I will write something, and then I will edit it out. In my mind, it's still in there, or it's in another place, only it's not in the book anymore. And then, so that's where alpha readers are really valuable, because they will catch those parts that I have edited out, and they'll be like, well, what's this? And I'll be like, oh, crap, that scene got deleted, and that scene was where that came into being.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay. So stuff like that. It's just, you get close. No matter how good you are not so good that you can't screw up.
Yeah. Now, what I've come to do is not necessarily full beta reading. I will send pieces or chunks of a book to people to be beta read. Now, I did this to you. I've done this to you fairly frequently, and that's, Larry, read this action scene for me, dude.
Yeah, because my thing is I have such a time suck. So I am the worst beta reader ever.
Oh, yeah. Or where our buddy Alan, I can be like, hey, Alan, do you have 3 minutes to read this entire novel? And he's like, well, yeah, I totally got that time.
Yeah.
Because he's such a fast reader.
Yeah, and
he retains really well.
Yeah, he's got like a weird speed reading ability.
Yeah, he's got some weird mind for that. And so I can send him a short story.
And he actually retains it.
Yeah, I can send him a short story, and he can read it and regurgitate it back to me and tell me what he thought was, again, to go back to our acronym here, I use ABCDE, and that's what's awesome, boring, confusing, dumb, and excellent. Okay, that way it ends on positives.
Yeah.
Psychological reinforcement, helping myself.
Yeah.
So anywho, he can go through that and he can regurgitate back to me all of that stuff on a short story in like an hour. And that's super awesome, but not everybody knows someone like that.
Yeah.
And in general, his advice is really good. Now, if I'm like, oh gosh, I need gun advice or whatever, I can go to you. Or at this stage of the game, I know so many people.
Yeah, you know a lot of people now.
If I need cop advice, I go talk to my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried. Like I can take as much time as I need with my dad. And those are actually fun. I mean, he's my dad. Those are fun conversations.
You actually like your dad.
I love my dad. Yeah. He's freaking rad. I talk about how awesome he is all the time on this show and with you personally. But that is the value in beta readers. readers is you can almost surgically target people if you need to get really interesting feedback. Or if you send it to enough people and en masse, they singularly point out one thing, you know that it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, there's a glitch. If everybody has a problem with it,
Mhm.
there's a glitch.
If there's a glitch. But if only one person has a problem with it and and everyone goes, that's fine, then you don't need to worry about that crap.
Yeah, that's just honestly, that's a matter of taste. And that's, I think, the difference between alpha readers and reading groups is just how much authority or how much clout you're giving to one voice.
Now, within there, I want to be clear that when Larry and I talk about alpha readers and beta readers, we use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah, pretty much.
I
mean,
there's no difference.
theoretically,
Theoretically there is a stratification there, but in practice, I just use the terms interchangeably, and I think you do too.
I don't really ever think of it.
I don't. It's just whatever.
It's just people after me before it goes to the editors.
I really like using certain beta readers, but over the course of time, I've used lots. And oftentimes they kind of weed themselves out if they're bad at their jobs. Or oftentimes they'll just tell me like, dude, I'm sorry, bro. I don't have enough time to do this anymore.
Or
and that's fine.
There's some that I still like and trust. It's just, I've done this enough.
Yeah.
Part of it's just like a question of, honestly, it's just confidence in your ability to.
Yeah.
It's how much you need them. And a lot of times when I bounce them off people, I know the story's good. I mean, professionally, 'cause I've done this so many times now, for so long, that I know it's good, but I want to just kind of get, like I said, that vibe check, that gut check, of people that I trust, you know? So it's not even necessarily that I'm looking for anything. It's just more like, I want to get some feedback before it goes off to the editor.
Yeah. And that can just be as simple as, does this work?
Or sometimes I'm just really excited.
Oh yeah, there's that.
I'm just enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And this is really fun. And that's why, one of the reasons I shared Lost Planet Homicide with you specifically is because you love gritty cop shows.
I love gritty cop shows.
And you love police procedurals. And I'm doing a sci-fi.
You're doing Space Bosch.
I'm doing Space Bosch, right? And so I'm like,
and I love Space Bosch.
Yeah, I'm like, here you go, check it out. And so, I went for that kind of thing, and that was up your alley.
I mean, I'm your target audience.
You are. And so when you come back and say, okay, this is badass, I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track.
Or when I come back and say, hey, I mean, obviously, I love both of the stories, and you guys are all going to love the second one. But I'll point out like, dude, I love this, super rad. I'm confused here, here, and here.
Yep, absolutely.
And you go, oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
And it makes it. I mean, that's easy stuff.
Yeah, I was just like, for like what, like I think the one with you was like I needed like one sentence of clarification.
Mm-hmm. That was literally it.
Yeah, and that tuned it up,
So that's the positive of beta readers. In terms of negatives for beta readers, I think the biggest trouble comes with trusting them too much.
Yeah, like I said, don't give too much clout to one person.
No. Now, even if Larry and I obviously we've beta read for each other for years now. We trust each other very much. And we've told the story before when it comes to Son of the Black Sword, where I was literally the first person in the world to read the completed manuscript.
Yeah.
And I rubbed that.
Well, and I
rubbed that in everyone's face.
And you had like 24. You had like 4 hours to.
Oh, you
it was like the next
morning. You
morning.
sent it to me, and I said, I need this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or it might have been a weekend.
Well, that's the one where I had to write 16,000 words in a day to get it done because they moved my deadline up like 3 months.
So I read it over, and I gave a crud ton of feedback on that one. Like I kind of pulled out all the stops, and I effectively gave you a line edit on that one.
No, you did a great edit on that one. Yeah.
And in another life, in a parallel universe, it's probably dark. Let's be honest, it's probably Darkest Timeline Steve. Darkest Timeline Steve is an editor. That's why he's so angry all the time.
Oh, obviously. He's a book reviewer. It's even worse.
Oh man, he's an editorial book reviewer. He's just such an angry man.
Yeah.
With an even more sinister. No, he doesn't have a good tea. That's why he's so angry all the time. But I went through and I did that. You took a good chunk of the advice.
Yeah, there's a lot of it I did. Yeah.
And there's a lot of it you were like, nah.
Yeah. Well, by that point in my career, I had enough confidence in myself that I,
And it's not like any of that other advice that you didn't accept was bad advice.
no, it was like sometimes guys, you have two viable paths forward.
Mhm.
And like you get advice and it's not necessarily this good advice or bad advice. It might be good advice, but it might not be what you direction you decide to go.
Well, and as the beta reader, you don't always have a full picture. You don't know what they're planning past this.
Yeah, you don't know what book 2 is going to be.
Yeah.
No, the biggest advice you actually gave me was on profanity.
Yeah.
And actually, it was just something I hadn't thought of.
I have soapboxes on this, dude.
And so when you told me that, it was one of those like, well, actually I had the ocean based profanity,
Yeah.
but I also had a lot of real profanity in there, like common like a profanity we used now. And Steve was like, it's an epic fantasy novel, and you've already got the ocean based stuff, which is cool and different.
You need this.
And you don't need it, and it will like just artificially limit your audience for an epic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, and it's just something that I had not even thought of. I swear a lot in real life, as does Steve. But Steve pointed that out from you, and you can from your bookstore selling book background.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I was like, that's a valid point.
And I believe it was in the same. It might have been the same book, and that was chapter titles.
Yeah, that was stupid. That was
You were forcing it.
I was, because in Hard Magic I had the chapter bumps.
Yeah.
Were
which
great.
Are still amazing.
One of the best things I've ever written were those chapter bumps. However, and so I was trying to go for, and it just didn't work. It was dumb, and that was one of those. I honestly,
you knew it, dude. You already knew.
I already knew that was wrong.
I think you just needed. I think you just needed someone who was removed from the product to say, hey, dude, this doesn't work.
And I looked at it,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, because each chapter had a title, and some of them worked and some of them were forced, and it felt forced.
Well, and that was the trouble. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it.
And you said that, I was like, you know what? Yeah. I was like, I already knew it, and I was like, yeah, that needs to go. That's stupid.
So there's so much benefit to beta readers and to writing groups. But there can also be dangers. We're not saying that one's better than the other. We're not saying you have to do one or the other. We're not saying you should do either of these. Honestly, we don't care. The idea is do what works for you. And that's a very individual feeling.
If you're inviting these people in to read your stuff, don't be defensive. Be open. Be analytical, though. So don't be too trusting.
You've got to be able to have your thick skin for this.
Yeah, because people are going to tell you stuff because you're creative. It's going to hurt your feelings.
Oh, dude. Let's not pretend that you or I haven't had our feelings hurt from beta reads.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, man, there's been stuff like, but because the thing is, usually when you hear it and deep down, they're right, but it's something you like, and you're like, oh, but I like that bit. It's stupid, but I like it.
The flip side of that is, and to make yourself feel better in the time, tell yourself that every time someone says one of those things to you in a beta read or in a writer group, when the book gets published, at some point, someone's going to say something that's the direct opposite. They're going to say something just unreasonably nice to you. This happened on Facebook the other day. Someone was talking about the head shaving scene in Servants of War.
Oh, yeah.
And,
yeah, I saw that comment. Yeah.
And not going to lie, dude, that made me feel pretty dang good.
Wasn't it Emma?
Was it Emma?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was commenting on someone else's post.
But I just remember it was like spot. It was women were saying that we got that right.
And dude, like we didn't plan that scene. I just wrote that in the draft.
It was awesome.
And after I wrote it, I knew that scene was gold as soon as I wrote it.
And when I read it, it was like, wow, that's really good.
And it's quiet. It's such a quiet scene.
Mm-hmm.
And fairly unexpected for a guy who writes all the terrible, horrible stuff I do.
No, that was good. That was really good.
So guys, remember, it's okay. Like, thicken your skin up, because every time that someone tells you, like, maybe hurt your feelings because what you wrote just wasn't up to snuff, but sometimes it was not up to snuff. Once your book is published and someone points out the nice stuff, it makes up for all the mean stuff 100 times over. It's okay. Thicken your skin. It's cool. But like, I think what you said is really important, Larry. And that's be honest with yourself and be analytical about it. Stop. If you can, channel your inner serial killer. You can call it your inner Steve if you want to. And that's remove emotion from the process. When someone is evaluating your stuff, shut down your emotion if you can, and just take the notes.
Yeah. They're either right or they're not. And it's up to you to decide.
Sometimes they're both. Sometimes they're neither. Like, you know
sure.
what I mean? You don't know. But as soon as you start attaching emotion to it, it screws you up.
Yeah.
Now, cool thing is, Jack was smart enough to set up this Facebook group for us. And there was a comment the other day where someone said something like, man, I wonder if we can use this Facebook group to like set up like writing groups and stuff. And my reply was, well, yeah, that's literally the point.
Obviously. And there's 700 people in there now. So
yeah, we want you guys to take this opportunity to find people that are like you. Meet with them, match with them. I mean, we've been saying this forever. Meet with them and match with them. Get your online writing groups. Meet with each other in private, however that happens. Zoom, I don't know. The world is a small place. Communication is crazy. Your location is irrelevant to writing groups now. You can do it ever. I mean, it doesn't matter. So go through that process. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, fine. But that's all you got to do. And be honest with yourself and evaluate these things. So, Larry, I think that's about all the time we have today.
I think so. I think we got that pretty well covered, though.
Now, if you're a supporter of the Writer Dojo, which is real easy to do, all you have to do is you can either send us a message if you want to be fairly anonymous, or which is totally cool, or if you just want to pitch it through Anchor, you can do that. There's a few different tier levels, and we appreciate all of them. I'm not going to get pissed if you only submit at the 99-cent level versus the $10 level. However, if you submit at the $10 level, that means I get to barbecue more often.
$10 is like a pound of brisket now.
I know. I mean, maybe even 1.5. So all you got to do, guys, if that's what you want to do, you can become a supporter. You can submit questions. And if there's further questions you have about what we're talking about here, let us know. We'll either answer them in question form, or if your question is super rad, we'll just dedicate an episode to it. It's not like, we do that all the time. So, Larry, as always, it's a pleasure to be here with you, man.
Always fun, Steve. I can't believe we've been doing this for a year.
Over a year now.
That's nuts.
A lucky 13 months when this episode airs.
Sweet.
Yeah. This is the Writer Dojo, everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.
Writer Dojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correa. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nybo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
I always get too much sun. I'm like a vampire. I stay inside.